Welcome to week 8 of our pregnancy week by week update. Things are not going great over here. The first trimester is really hitting me. It's pretty miserable. But if you're on this journey, you're not alone. Comment below to let us know how you were feeling. Hopefully better than me. But let's figure out what's going on during week 8 of your pregnancy. What is happening with baby in week 8? I'm Roxanne. I'm a labor and delivery nurse and student midwife. And baby is the size of a raspberry or M&M, which I feel like an M&M is a little smaller than a raspberry personally, but maybe it's a peanut. Yeah, a peanut M&M. Maybe it did not specify peanut M&M. It just said M&M. Even like the peanut butter M&Ms. You remember those ones that are filled, or the crunchy ones? I think those came back. Yeah, those are good. Those ones are the best M&Ms. Maybe it's more like that size, but I feel like raspberries are pretty big. And they range from really large sizes. So for a peanut, an M&M sized raspberry. A very small child just destroying my life right now. Yes. An M&M is making you sick. But what is happening with that little tiny raspberry M&M? So baby's cardiac activity is continuing to develop, and you may be able to see like the little flicker on the ultrasound, which this week is the time that many people are getting ultrasounds done, because this is likely when many of us are having our first prenatal visit. Baby's facial features are also starting to develop at this point. So their eyelids, not their eyeballs, the lids, their nose, their lips, all of the things that kind of like make your face, are starting to develop now. Baby's fingers and toes are webbed, like little like frogs. Frogs are webbed, I believe. They're all little webs. So if you saw their hand on the ultrasound, it won't look like little individual fingers because they're all connected still. It's like little gummy bear arms. Yeah, little gummy bear arms. Yes, they're so cute. As well as their little mermaid tail, or little like dragon tail, however you want to call it, is starting to disappear. So when you get an ultrasound, you may or may not see the little tail still. They may be like little limb nubs at this point. But that's really all that's going on with baby. They're just doing a lot of developing with their limbs and face and stuff. With you, lots still happening with you. Obviously, you feel it. This is the really common time that most of us, again, are going to see our provider for the first time around 8 to 10 weeks. They're most likely going to offer at this time a dating ultrasound. Most providers now are kind of offering it routinely, that everybody gets a dating ultrasound at their first prenatal visit. But some providers are only offering it if you're unsure about your last menstrual period. So if you have been breastfeeding, if you're like recently pregnant, or you never had like regular cycles, especially like if you had a cycle that was 28 days and the next one was like 35 days, that's not a regular consistent cycle. So then they would recommend that dating ultrasound for those periods. But if you're like pretty sure about your last menstrual period, you knew when you ovulated, and you know your like a due date based off of that is pretty accurate, they won't always offer this dating ultrasound. But what does that dating ultrasound even mean? 1, you get to see your baby at this appointment. 2, they're measuring from the top of baby's head to their butt. So it's called the crown, top of head, to rump, the butt. And they measure that length, and this gives them an estimated due date based off of that measurement. And this is because most babies are going to be the same exact size for like the first 10 or so weeks pregnant. After 10 weeks is when they start to veer off on their own growth curve, because as we know, all babies are different sizes when they're born, so they're all on their own growth curve. But for the first 10 weeks, everyone is pretty much the same exact size. So they're able to get a really accurate estimated due date based on those sizes. So if you like ovulated later, or you ovulated sooner, that due date could be adjusted from your last menstrual period because of that. So they will only adjust your due date if you had a last menstrual period due date, if it's greater than 5 days different, if you're like less than 9 weeks pregnant. If you're between 9 and 13 weeks pregnant, it has to be greater than 7 days for them to adjust it. And this is, again, if you had an estimated due date. If you had no estimated due date because you don't know when your last menstrual period is, which many of us don't, or they weren't pretty regular, so it's like you're not pretty positive about it, that's the only time that they would then change it. If you didn't know those things, then it would just be the ultrasound is the due date, because there's only one due date at that point.
For me, I found the dating ultrasound was really beneficial. For my first pregnancy, I got a dating ultrasound at like 8 or 9 weeks pregnant, and it changed my due date like almost 10 days because I had ovulated super late in my cycle and I didn't know that. And so even like my ACG levels were like really low compared to what I thought I was pregnant. And it worked out because at the end of my pregnancy, I didn't go into labor until I was after 41 weeks. And so if I had not had that dating ultrasound to adjust my due date, I would have been induced to like when I was technically 40 weeks because my due date wouldn't have been changed. And so for subsequent pregnancies, I always got a dating ultrasound to confirm my due date because my cycle is kind of all over the place sometimes. And I wanted to make sure that I had an accurate due date because I knew how important it was toward the end of my pregnancy to make sure that I was not early or not super late based on like an inaccurate due date, especially for me with my last 3 pregnancies and this one where I'm giving birth at home. And so there's only certain parameters where I can give birth at home with my licensed provider. Otherwise, I would have to transfer my care. And in my last pregnancy, I was 41 and 3 and was getting super anxious towards the end because I was like, well, what if my due date is wrong? Like, and that's why I'm so pregnant right now. And so for this one, I wanted to make sure that when I'm nearing the end of my pregnancy, that I know that I have an accurate due date so that I have a little bit less stress about when I need to go into labor because, yeah. So yeah. I found that to be really beneficial. It also was like a good opportunity to confirm that my pregnancy was actually happening because I have had a miscarriage in the past where I had all the symptoms of pregnancy, but there wasn't actually anything developing. And so I didn't get that ultrasound until 9 weeks. And that's when we found out that we didn't have a viable pregnancy. And so for me, getting the daily ultrasound is also really helps to reduce my anxiety because I'm like, okay, all these symptoms are for something.
Yeah. Yeah. And Gina, you are also using the Anido app, so you knew that you ovulated later. And so you knew, like, based off of your last menstrual period, it was going to be somewhat off since you ovulated later than, like, your last menstrual period would have said. So you knew your due date was going to be changed.
Yeah, that app was, like, super helpful to figure out what was happening within my cycle, like when I probably ovulated, like when the baby was conceived to kind of help me know what my due date probably was. And so the dating ultrasound was really helpful to confirm that that was correct.
Yeah. I will say the last menstrual period due date is based off of a 28-day cycle. How many of us have a 28-day cycle? None of us here at this table have a 28-day cycle. So if you don't have that 28-day cycle, your due date does need to be adjusted based off of how long your menstrual period actually is. So if you have a 30-day cycle regularly, then you would add 2 days to whatever that due date was. So if your due date was August 28th, but you normally have a 30-day cycle, not a 28-day cycle, then you would add 2 days, and that would make your last menstrual period August 30th would be the due date. So not everybody does that, but just know that's why sometimes our due dates can be so off, because it's based off of a 28-day cycle that not many of us have. Another benefit of an ultrasound in the first trimester is it can identify if there is more than one baby.
Oh God, I would cry.
Yeah. So I know many people that they went in for their dating ultrasound and a second heart rate was found, and many of them tell me, they're like, I was like, oh my God, my baby has 2 hearts. How does that happen? How does one baby have more than one heart rate? And then it takes a second to like process. And they're like, oh no, it's not 2 hearts in one baby. It's 2 babies. There's more than one baby in there. And I don't know what I would do, but I would. There's so many videos on like Instagram of like, wait, what? Excuse me? What'd you say? But I've also heard people like not knowing until like freaking anatomy ultrasound, and all of a sudden there's a second baby, and they're like, what do you mean? What do you mean? So that's another benefit of an ultrasound. If there's any sort of possibility of multiples, twins, triplets, however many, especially if you did like IVF or like you know that you have a history of it, having that first trimester ultrasound to identify if there's one baby or other babies in there as well, to prepare mentally for the future can be helpful. Other than your first prenatal visit in week 8, for many of us, this is also when most of us start to feel our first trimester symptoms. Like many of the time, like you feel good for the first few weeks and you're like, oh, I'm going to be great. No first trimester symptoms for me. And then like 7-8 weeks hits and you're like, just kidding. I feel awful. in like garbage, because this is when morning sickness happens. Heartburn, insomnia, diarrhea, or constipation, one or the other. Which one is it going to be? Like some people, they were like, I thought that I just had a stomach flu because I was throwing up and I had diarrhea. I was like, oh, I must just have like a stomach bug. And they're like, surprise, you're pregnant. So one or the other. And this is just due to the lovely pregnancy hormone, progesterone, doing a lot of things to our body, causing all of these changes. Our GI system slows down, as well as like our body is trying to create all of this extra blood. So we're super fatigued and short of breath. And it's a great time.
I really thought that this was going to be the time I didn't experience it, that I, 4 times now. Surely by the 4th time I'd be really good at pregnancy and I wouldn't
Mastered pregnancy.
lies. No, I lied to myself. It's miserable. It's miserable.
Some people, there are 3 different theories of morning sickness that have like changed throughout the years. 2 of them are not hopefully like believed to this day. The most common one is it's evolutionary. Like morning sickness is an evolutionary advancement that like your body is like, you can't eat this food because it can make you sick. And this is a really critical like developmental period where something that you eat or like you could get some sort of illness or sickness that doesn't really affect you but could really affect baby's development. So evolutionary, like your body's like, don't eat that because that can make you sick, maybe, and then this baby is going to be affected. So morning sickness and food aversions, that's why it develops. And I think Gina once said, like, just tell your body you're fine.
And this is what someone told me to do. It's all mind over matter. Just tell your body that this food is safe and you can eat it. And I was like, nope. That didn't work. That did not work.
Butter noodles for Gina. The other 2, though, these are like the mind-blowing ones that I learned in school. Is 1, people used to believe that you had some sort of mental illness if you had morning sickness, like something was like mentally wrong with you, and that's why you were having this nausea. So like people were like almost like committed when they were having morning sickness during their pregnancy because they thought something was like actually mentally wrong with someone who was throwing up all the time while they were pregnant, or that you did not want the pregnancy. And so you were throwing up and not eating because you were trying to starve the baby. And I was like, those are real aggressive responses.
Oh my gosh.
Morning sickness.
So those are not true.
Those are not true and not believed today. But like, I was like, man, people are very aggressive with their assumptions. So not true. We do not feel that way now. I do think the evolutionary one maybe holds true, not to the like, just tell yourself you're safe and then you'll be able to eat your food. I don't know that one.
There are some folks that believe that the type of morning sickness you have, or whether you have it or you don't, can be a predictor of what your baby's sex is. So like if you don't really have morning sickness, it's more likely to be a boy because you need to eat the meat and the vegetables to make them strong. But if you have a lot of morning sickness, it's because you're having a girl, which I think is really funny. And I'd be curious, let us know in the comments, did you have morning sickness and then have a girl and then no morning sickness and have the boy, or was it vice versa for you? Because for me, it's been true. My only boy pregnancy, I did not actually have a lot of morning sickness. I was super fatigued, but I didn't have morning sickness the same way that I had with my girl pregnancies.
I just got sicker every pregnancy. My first, no, I was fine. I would just get a little.
You got worse at pregnancy.
I got worse at pregnancy. My first, I had no morning sickness. If I just didn't eat, I would get a little nauseous, but then I would eat a thing of cheese and I'd be good to go, or eat an egg and I'd be like, okay, good to go. My son, I would get insane if I did not eat dinner by 5 p.m. Like so freaking early. 5 p.m. I couldn't eat for the rest of the night because like I was in like pain and sick starting at 5 p.m. for almost the entire first and second trimester. It was pretty awful. So I had to eat dinner at like 4:30 every day or just no dinner. And then with Joan, I was definitely sick a lot more. I never threw up with any of them though. Except one time with Lily, because another thing that happened in, I could have just been blocking. The only time I remember throwing up is because another fun side effect of pregnancy is heightened smell. And you might even notice it in first trimester, the heightened smell, because it also can increase your morning sickness and food aversions because just the smell can make you sick. And probably also an evolutionary thing so that you don't eat bad food. But I walked into my call room at work and there's bacon sitting on the table that had been sitting there for like 3 hours. The smell, it was like not a large break room. The smell of the bacon hit me, and I had to sprint to the bathroom and just projectiled, because I was like, there goes my that smell. I had someone had to go into the break room, throw it away outside of the room, and then I could leave the bathroom, because it was like the break room. I had to enter into the the locker room and then the bathroom, and I was like, I can't walk back through. I'm just gonna throw up again. So someone had to throw the bacon away before I could leave the bathroom. It was bad. That's the only time I remember throwing up vividly during pregnancy. Ugh. From the heightened smell. And I think that's also like you smell your BO a lot more when you're pregnant, and other people's BO, because your nose.
Your nose knows.
Your nose knows. But Gina, how are you coping with your morning sickness?
Not well. I don't feel good. I'm pretty much just laying on the couch. I'm not exercising at all. I'm just existing and regretting some life choices right now, where I'm like, did I need a fourth child? Did I really need every first trimester? I'm like, I regret everything. So my husband is pretty much doing everything. He's cooking, he's cleaning, he's taking care of the kids. I am just a blob on the couch.
He did this to you.
It's his fault. So, but overall, not feeling great. The light is coming in a month or so, hopefully, and I will feel much better. But gonna try to do all of the morning sickness remedies, and I will let you know next week how they worked. So, well, thanks so much for tuning into how I am feeling in my 8th week of pregnancy. Not good, my man, not good. Hopefully, you feel better than I do. If you don't, so misery loves company, and we're doing this together. But let us know in the comments below how morning sickness is for you, whether or not you had a boy or girl, because I would be really curious if this urban myth is true or not. But let us know in the comments below how you are feeling, because we want to be on this journey with you. If you want more support throughout your pregnancy, check out our online prenatal fitness programs and our online childbirth education course, because our goal is to help you feel empowered to move throughout your pregnancy and empowered throughout your entire birth experience. You can grab our courses on our website at mamasayfit.com and use code YouTube10 to get 10% off any of our online offerings. And you can also bundle our prenatal fitness and childbirth education course together to save an additional 15% off. Stay tuned for week number 9 of the Pregnancy Week by Week update to see if anything progresses for me, or does it just get worse? We will see. And then be sure to check out our entire Pregnancy Week by Week update from week 4 all the way to however long I am pregnant for, probably 41 weeks. And we will go
Hopefully not 42.
I don't know, hopefully not 42. That would be really sad. But thanks for joining us.